We'll just jump right into it. How's it going? How you doing?
Doing well, man. How are you guys?
Good,
Not bad,
good.
not bad.
We're out here trying to deal with the weather out here in Toronto. What was the temperature out there right now?
It's around like 32 degrees Celsius.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you guys don't deal with Celsius. You guys do with Fahrenheit?
No, right now it's still hot, man. It's like 104 degrees Fahrenheit here, so it's hot.
Vegas is literally a sauna over there.
You were out in
Yeah.
Vegas recently, right?
I went for the Connor fight, and when we were there, I had to change my shirt up every few hours because it was so hot outside.
Oh yeah, it'll cook you out here, bro. It's hot.
It's basically a desert. That's what
It
it
is a
is.
desert, yeah.
Desert
Oh,
with a
yeah.
bunch of buildings and gyms.
Casinos.
Yeah, desert with showgirls.
Have you ever come down to Toronto? Because I know there's a Extreme Couture down here in Toronto.
I've been to Toronto briefly. The Extreme Couture we have up there is not affiliated with us. It once was, and for some reason I don't know the logistics behind it, but like they didn't ever pay their affiliate fee, but were somehow able to hold on to their name. So they have absolutely zero connection to us or Extreme Couture. They once did. They had like with Randy, but man, it's been years that we haven't had any connection with them at all.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Cause yeah, because I know, like I haven't really got into the training yet, but I know Hud over here, he's really in the boxing world, and I think we were trying to plan to go down there, maybe see some of your fighters or crossing, but I guess
I guess it's like
I
something.
guess it's a little awkward if we go.
Yeah, we don't really have anybody over there at all. Misha Serkinov moved to Vegas years ago, but he actually trains over at Drysdale's. So yeah, we really don't really have any connection at all with that gym. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah. One thing that's common for fighters that I see is like fighters will go to different gyms and they'll go and they'll go to TriStar and they'll like try it out. They'll see the other fighters. How about coaches? Do you ever go to other camps or other gyms just to get a feel of what other people are doing?
Yeah, that's a great question, man. I do, and I have a lot of I'd say like good friends in the sport. So I've been over to MMA Lab to go hang out with Coach John Crouch. I've been over to Trevor Whitman's gym. I haven't been out to see Henry yet, Henry Hooft in Florida, but him and I are very close. We speak probably once or twice a week. I like to go out and see my friend James Krause or Tyson Chartier. And Tyson and I talk probably once or twice a week. But we exchange notes and we go over game plans, and we're very close. So by nature, I get to learn a lot from my colleagues, and I think that's important, man. I think it's very important to set your ego aside and know that there's still areas of improvement and areas that we can learn from one another. I think that's why I really enjoy that little group that we have, that camaraderie that we share. Me and Brandon Gibson, like we talk all the time. So that stuff's important to me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, one thing that's always like a gray area when it comes to like the fighter situation is sometimes you'll see these fighters go to other gyms, but they'll have somebody that's in their same division that also is like up and coming. How do you deal with guys that come and visit? Because I know if I'm not mistaken, Aljamain Sterling usually is out in New York, but now he's training out in Las Vegas with you guys. Like, how do you deal with that little like I don't know what to say call it, but how do you deal with that?
I think you have to, make sure you're communicating with your teammates that are there full time. And if there's any conflict or if they feel a certain way about someone coming in, you have to address those things, So like Marab comes in with Aljamain all the time. And Marab and Cody Stamen are fighting, So Cody Stamen's our teammate. And it was actually a day when I was actually out of town, but Marab came in to spar at our gym, and Cody Stamen's there, and they're fighting each other in like a month. So Brad Tavares, being like the captain of the team, was very nice about it, very diplomatic. He just said to Marab, like, "Hey, you can't come in today. Cody's here. He's our teammate." And Marab was 100% okay with that. He understood. So I think just make sure you set a level of communication, expectations, and understanding. Like, there's going to be a lot of people coming in and out, especially because the PI and we're in Las Vegas. So we do get a lot of guests, but and we're kind of accustomed to that, I think, over the years. I mean, we've been open for almost 15 years now, so it's happened quite often. And Randy's always been a big proponent of allowing that. Like, he likes people coming in and likes having guests. He says if they're not signed on the dotted line, then, with a teammate of ours, then they should be allowed to come in and train. So, and I kind of feel the same.
Yeah, it's fun. It's as well, like, just for mixed martial arts, right? It's intriguing to go and see these fighters that are maybe they're like situated in Ireland, for example, and they've never been outside of the country, and then all of a sudden they come in and you get this new guy that really isn't traditional from wherever you guys are from. So it's like a different look that you get that you wouldn't naturally get anywhere else.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm just kind of from the new breed of coaching and MMA where, I don't think there's really many secrets. And I think that, like, just kind of being an open book and being transparent in a lot of ways helps. I think it just allows people to come in and feel like they have the opportunity to learn and train. And, if, we've had guys like Gavin Tucker, for an example, he came train with us a bunch. He's a great kid. He ends up fighting Dan Ige. Dan ends up beating him, and then Gavin came out and trained with us again. So, it's just the level of, like, we care. We want to see guys succeed. And as long as you're cool and we get along, then I don't see it ever being an issue.
Yeah.
100%.
Everybody's being basically professional about the situation.
Yeah, for sure, man.
But like in Vegas too, there's so many gyms there too, right? So
yeah. And speaking of Vegas, again, Vegas is one of those places in the United States, especially that has this like huge incline of popularity, of traffic, of people just moving there. How do you deal with that transition now, where you start to see all these new guys come into the gym that want a piece of you, want your time? Like, what is your schedule like now, especially with all this new traffic?
You have to pick and choose, and it's difficult to kind of balance it. There's a handful of guys that I'll always like give time to when I know they're in town. It's like Paul Felder, Bilal Muhammad will come in, Kevin Holland, guys like that like, they're not teammates of ours, but they're good dudes, and they're guys that, like, I enjoy training with. And that's the big thing for me, man, is like, do I enjoy spending the hour with this person? And, I'm not doing it for monetary value. Moreover, I'm doing it just because I enjoy it. And I enjoy being around those people. So for me, it's just, as long as there's a connection there and I can help and I can learn something too myself. Like, hey, what are you doing here? I like to see what Kevin Holland's doing with his striking. I like to see what Bilal Muhammad's doing. I like to see what Paul Felder's doing. So that's why I like it. I think I come out of that learning something too.
Yeah.
Always learning. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a mutual thing. There's some coaches that exclusively train maybe like a handful of people, 2 or 3. Do you do that, or do you just do what you said, where you try to just spend as much time with as many people as possible?
Yes and no. Like, so I think for me coming up, volume was important. Like, you were trying to work every weekend and you're trying to make sure you're getting your reps in and putting camps together. And it's hard, man. It burns you out. But also, like, for me, I like to have the simplicity and the kind of the tunnel vision, if you will, with specific fighters. Myself, Danny Ige, Francis, Jeremy Kennedy, Kai Kamaka, like, handful of people that I really just like focus and dial in on. I feel like that's important. Brad Tavares, I think I've been with Brad for almost 14 fights now, so when you start to spread yourself out pretty thin, it dilutes your product. And, I'm an energy guy, like, I'm high intensity, high energy. So, if I'm working hard and doing stuff every day, then I feel like I'm taking away from the important people that have been here for a long, long time, like those guys that I named.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking of some of the fighters that you named, one of the more prominent fighters is Francis Ngannou. A lot has been made with his upcoming matchup against the interim champion, Cyril Gane. What are your thoughts on, first of all, the interim championship? What were your thoughts? Like, was it supposed to happen? Was it a good thing, a bad thing? Like, what was your first impression?
I didn't really give 2 shits about it, to be honest with you. I just thought it was kind of a slap in the face to Francis, because he had just defended the belt in March, but I don't make too much of a big deal about it, to be honest with you. It was just another fight. And I think the UFC got it right. Those guys deserve that spot and to fight for the next contender. And I think for me, like if as a coach, like if I'm making a big deal about this, then it rubs off on my fighter and it rubs off on everybody else around me. I know who the champion is, and I don't try to make a big deal about it. I think the UFC was just trying to make a business move and make the best card they could for Houston. And, it worked. They have a number one challenger now in Ciryl Gane. I thought he looked great in the fight. And I'm excited. To compete against the guy, but I didn't put too much stock in it, man. Like I didn't lose too much sleep about it. I don't think Francis really did either. It just sucks that they put the interim label on it, but it is what it is, man. I don't think we can cry over spilled milk, Yep.
Yeah. It seemed like Francis was a little bit bothered by it, not too much. He let it be known to people that, like, you know what, I'm the real champion. I had to work for this and all that kind of stuff. Like, I understand his camp because he had to wait for so long since his Stipe fight, the first one, where he lost. Yeah. Then he had to fight Derek Lewis, and he had to fight all these people, and then finally gets his time, wins the championship, and then 4 months later, you just pass it to somebody else.
I think just a little bit of clarity on when you're going to put an interim label on it, I think would be nice. But again, it's their promotion. They can do what they see fit. But just be consistent across the board. It's like, why does this guy get to defend his title in a year and a half and there's been no interim? It's like, well, where's the consistency behind it? And I think that's the thing that, like, for us is just kind of, the questionable part. But it is what it is. We all know who the champion is, and now there's a rightful contender. I do feel bad for Stipe, man. I think Stipe should be right up there too. And to be quite fair, I feel like Stipe should be the one with the opportunity at the next title shot because he's earned it. He's been a guy who's defended the belt and has had that belt for a long time, and now he gets leapfrogged. So it's all a crazy situation. But what I am proud about is Francis has been in the gym every day and he's been training. But he has no fight lined up. But the moment we were supposed to fight Derek Lewis, he hasn't stopped training. He's been in camp. So it's, whatever they tell us we're ready, we're ready.
He's looking scary too, especially in the videos. I don't know, they've been crazy striking, crazy pad work.
Yeah. Not to stick on Stipe too long, but one thing that we noted, like, because we were watching the fight together, right after the fight, there was absolutely no questions, no talk at all for Stipe getting a rematch. It was just instantly somebody else. It was like, okay, John Jones, okay, Derek Lewis or Ciryl Gane. It was not anything about Stipe Miocic, and I was kind of confused. But that's potentially a fight that I think maybe one fight, maybe 2 fights away that Stipe might be back in the picture.
Yeah, I think just because the way the fight ended with Stipe getting knocked out, I think everybody knew that Stipe was going to need some time, and he should have some time. But yeah, I feel like we all got kind of force-fed John Jones, and that was what we were told. Like right after, it's like, all right, we're fighting John Jones, and then this deal doesn't get done, and then it's going to be Derek Lewis, but the timing wasn't right, and then it's this and it's that. So, but that's the nature of the business, man. You have to be stay prepared and stay ready for all comers. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Just to speak back, let's go back to Ciryl Gane. What do you think of him? Because he comes from a kickboxing foundation, and we've seen a lot of fighters come into mixed martial arts with that similar foundation, but majority of them don't necessarily have that much success. It's usually because of the wrestling, the striking is a little bit different. They don't necessarily transition the best. Ciryl Gane, on the other hand, has taken that and has this unique approach to it where he really moves like middleweight, right? He doesn't move like a heavyweight. And he's able to put away a lot of these people. One caveat on him is that he doesn't necessarily have knockout power. He's just a volume guy. But what is your take? What is your impression? What is your report on him?
I think he's very good. And, I think what he does very well is kind of what you're seeing the sport evolve into. If you watch kind of the way Giga fought last night, Giga's able to hit from both stances. He does things within motion. If he drops steps back, he's in a different stance and he's able to strike from that stance. If he's moving laterally, he's able to do post crosses and walk you in a trap. So I see a lot of that same movement, same style. I wouldn't say like the kicking prowess that Giga has on Ciryl Gane, but they're both very good in what they are able to do and dictate their range and how they move. So I think he's good, man. I think he's really, really good. I think he's right in the spot that he deserves. I'll tell you, I was actually more impressed by the Volkov fight than I was with the Derek Lewis fight because of style matchup, right? I thought Volkov would be, with his range, his level of striking, his MMA striking, that it would be a very tough fight for Gon, and he passed the flying colors. So I think the Derek Lewis fight style wise makes the matchup, and I thought that was just a nightmare matchup for Derek. So yeah, man, I think the guy's incredible. It's what he's doing, and he's only getting better. And I think he's a worthy adversary for the first fight or for our first title defense.
And also, quick question: I've been seeing on Instagram too. There's a sparring clip of him and Francis. How old is that clip where they were sparring? I'm not sure if you know.
I think it was when Francis was fighting JDS. I think it was back then. So with that being said, I think it's pretty fucking corny that you're going to release sparring footage. Like there's a unwritten code, like in MMA, like when you're in the gym, like for one, anybody that's filming in the gym, that should be the coaching staff. And that stuff should never be released. I have hours and hours of footage that I can release of people that, look good or look bad. So you got to think like it's just the typical, just the same way that media handles things. They put out what you want to hear or what they want you to understand or know. So, they're holding all the cards. I know some things that happened in that gym that Francis told me that they didn't show, so it's like, well, where's that video? How come you didn't post that? You're right. So dude, that to me is the most corniest shit you can do is release sparring footage in your own gym. That's fucking lame.
And to be fair as well, like that was like touch sparring. They weren't actually like going out. They're like, what do you expect Francis to do? Like go full out power in those clips and like
20%, I think, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So if anybody's taking anything away from either side, like you can't take much from Gon, you can't take much from Francis. But I could tell you from my standpoint, I have to talk to Francis quite often about not breaking your toys in the gym. Like you can't knock everybody out. You can't break everybody's neck. You can't do this. You can't do that because we only have so many bodies in the gym. So if that's the case, and then if I say that to Francis, then I go videotape it and then release it. It's just like it's typical media, and to me, it's like it's just an unwritten rule in MMA, bro. You just don't do that. Like I got footage of guys all over, and I would never do that. I'd never release it. So I think it's pretty weak.
Yeah, but it seems like almost like a new kind of trend now. You go on Instagram, you go on like all these new apps, and they always show like sparring in these gyms. But yeah, like you're right, it's a code, right? That like you don't post that kind of stuff.
And like since day one, and I have guests in my gym all the time. And if you're in my gym as a guest and you're watching practice, you're sitting on the bleachers, and we tell them no photos and no videography. If you pull out your phone, you're kicked out. So, and even if it's like, oh, I'm just filming my buddy. Well, yeah, you might be filming your buddy, but in the background over there, this guy's training or this guy's fighting. And that happened before. I remember, I can't remember, Gray Maynard was fighting somebody, and Jose Aldo saw a video of this and wrote Gray's opponent, and it was, Gray was fighting some Brazilian guy that trained with Jose Aldo, and it got out, and I was like, all right, no more cameras, no more video. I don't care who's in here.
Yeah. Just to go back to the matchup with Cyril, I don't necessarily want you to give us any like necessarily game plan, but one thing that I took away was Cyril. Majority of his game, the way that he does, he comes out is he imposes his will using leg kicks. Like a lot of times, he will use his leg kicks in the beginning of the rounds so that he slows down his opponents. Francis, of his recent opponents, probably the closest one to that is Alistair Overeem. Do you see, or do you know, what can you say about dealing with these leg kicks? We don't really see Francis get leg kicked, especially in his last matchups. But we know that Cyril's going to come out there and stand right in front of Francis, leg kick, and then escape every single time.
Yeah, it's just usually how you check, how you counter, what side it's coming from, how it's set up. Is he setting it up with the hands? Is it coming from open stance? Is it coming from closed stance? How do you want to counter back? Usually depends on where it's located and where it lands. So like, for example, like if you're open stance and he throws a left head kick, and how is it blocked? Are you feeling shin bone? Are you feeling toes? Is it missing you? Like, so you don't ever want to, like, if it's long, you don't want to come charging in with a counter right cross because he might already be planning to throw a left southpaw, straight counter. So it's just really depicted on the range and where it's coming from and how you want to set it up. But we have plenty of reads off of those things, and I think that if he wants to get in a kick battle with us, we can make him pay for that.
Well, who's the last fighter that you recall that you worked on leg kicks similar to what you're gonna have to with Cyril Gane?
Probably off the top of my head, I mean, we just had the fight with Danny Chavez and Kai Kamaka, and Danny Chavez was a big calf kicker. So we decided to beat the shit out of his calf first. And Kai Kamaka slammed calf kicks that whole fight and made him leave in a wheelchair. Same with Brad Tavares. Brad and I have really worked very diligently along with Ray Sefo about perfecting our angle of calf kicks and what we like to do. Low kicks, calf kicks, all kicks in general. But, I think for us, like, being able to throw them and implement them, you also have to understand how to defend them as well. So we have a pretty good lead on that stuff.
How about for Francis's camps? Like, in his previous opponents, how many times or how much focus did you put on leg kicks? Because, like, against Stipe, you're not really going to throw leg kicks. I know he threw a couple head kicks at Stipe, but in general, his last opponents you didn't really need to leg kick them.
No, we threw calf kicks. We threw calf kicks a lot versus Stipe. That was a big part of our camp. The emphasis was the rear hand parry the jab. We'll rear hand parry the jab and drop the outside low calf to take away the jab hand. If you go back and watch that fight, I think that was one of the first things we threw was the calf kick. We blasted that fucker. So and we did that quite a bit in the JDS fight as well. We threw a lot of calf kicks as well, leg kicks, calf kicks. Francis, man, he kicks hard, dude. So it's just another weapon that I think that we always have to have, and a tool, especially for a guy like Stipe. He uses a lot of lateral movement, and he's can be heavy on that front foot coming in off his shot. So we wanted to make sure we took away his lead leg.
Hey, but quick side question though: when you're holding pads for Francis compared to your other fighters, how would you compare the power?
Oh, it's up there, man. Like, it's scary. It's scary. I'm just glad he's accurate. If he misses, he's gonna put me to sleep. Me and Dewey Cooper have two of the hardest jobs in the world holding pads for that guy. But I'll tell you what, man, my man Punahele Soriano can crack too, man. Get that guy on the pads, he hits like a truck.
How often do you wear the body shield?
Yeah, man. The body. Sometimes the body shield is like almost like a misnomer, man. Like, Francis hit me a few times in the chest. I feel like my heart was gonna stop. I was like, bro, I don't want to hold this fucking thing anymore, dude. It's crazy. So yeah, he hits hard, dude.
Yeah. One last thing about the Francis. I know I have a feeling that the MMA community as well as the media is going to eat up the whole storyline of Francis coming from his old gym, coming to you guys, becoming a champion, and now facing somebody from that old gym. Coach versus coach. That's going to be built up a lot. What are your feelings about that situation?
I don't give a shit about it at all, to be honest with you. I have nothing against Ferdinand or those guys over there. I mean, it is what it is. That's honestly between Francis and them. I have zero input on it. My job is to execute the name that comes across the table and put a game plan together and finish it. So backstories and coaches and bad blood and all that stuff, man, to be honest with you, I just don't really add any fuel to the fire, because I don't want to make my fighter any more emotional than he needs to be. I want to keep him, calm and reserved, and just think that he has one task at hand, and that's to defend his belt and not put anything into like the ego side of stuff. So, whatever problems he has with Ferdinand is between him and Ferdinand, and I can give two shits about it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. One other fighter we love a good story is Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate, after being retired, coming off 2 losses, Amanda Nunes and then Raquel Pennington, decides that she has this fire again for the sport. She comes back a mother. She comes back coming from, I believe it was ONE FC, where she was on the executive team. She comes back a whole new person. Can you talk about what the differences you see between her then and then now?
I think she's just kind of back with a clear slate. I think her relationship with Brian Caraway was very taxing on her. She was almost kind of in a tough relationship, and never really had a time to breathe. Getting away and then now being with Johnny Nunez and having 2 kids and being able to hit the reset button, I think it just refocused her drive. And that's something that I'm very happy with about her, because I knew when she retired, I knew it wasn't her time to retire, but I just feel like she needed to step away from the sport a little bit and just let the dust settle. And dude, she did all the hard work, man. Like, Coach Giff, myself, and the team over there, we really just love what she brings to the table. She's infectious. She did a lot of hard work. She was over the training lab with Coach Cal. So, man, she didn't even have to cut weight. Like, she showed up on weight that day. Usually she has about a 10-pound weight cut. She had no weight cut. She was in super good shape. So all the things that she really did this camp, man, it was a testament to her and her hard work. And, she should get all the credit for that.
Yeah, she doesn't get enough credit in general for what she's done in the sport. Like, she was the person who was a champion back in Strikeforce that got challenged by this up and coming person. Ronda Rousey gave her the opportunity, and then unfortunately she lost, and then went to the UFC, and then built up with the Tough series, and then the championship, and then later on she beats Holly Holm in that incredible fight, and then now she has this resurgence. She's really done a lot for the women's movement, if you want to call that, in MMA. I think there's an opportunity. She keeps talking about it in terms of Amanda Nunes. What are your thoughts on, like, how many fights do you think she needs, or do you want to see her do before she knocks on the door of Amanda Nunes again?
I think at least 2 more. She's got the Caitlin Vieira fight, and I think 1 more after that would make a lot of sense. So, I think for her, this camp took her a while to get her body used to being back in fight shape, being a mama too, and getting kind of back in the groove of the team and everything else. So now that we saw what she's capable of after, this last fight, I think she's only going to get better from here. But I think 1 or 2 more fights, I think this fight and 1 more would be ideal. It'd make a lot of sense for her.
So Amanda is the 135 and 145 champion, and funny enough, if you go to the rankings, last time I checked, it's like only Amanda Nunes in the 145. So how about, have you guys discussed about her just going for that 145 title? Does it really matter that it's that she goes for the 135?
Well, it's obviously a clearer path to get to the title, and I don't necessarily think that's like what she's looking for. I think that she's not really in a hurry and wants a little bit more ring time. So I think the last fight for us was the best case scenario, where we got her on the stool twice. We got into the 3rd round, and then she was able to go get a finish. That's kind of what we were trying to, like, if you could map out the best type of scenario for the fight, that was really it, So, yeah, you definitely, if you wanted to go to 145, you just streamline yourself right into a title fight, because you're right, there's no one there. But I don't think that's necessarily what she's looking for. I think she's looking to get better and then be the best version of herself she can be.
Do you think she can cut down to 125, or is she just too yeah?
I mean, I think she could if she really, really, really wanted to, but I don't know if that's going to be a healthy for her, So anything's possible with Misha, man. That girl can do anything she wants to put her minds to. But what she's doing with Coach Cal at the training lab right now, and the way she looked this last fight, I don't think 125 is where she needs to be.
Yeah, it just is interesting to see her against people like Valentina and all those girls down there.
Yeah.
Somebody that we talked about before was Aljamain Sterling. He's talked about, I've seen footage that he moved out to Las Vegas. He's a little bit more focused. It was more, there are more things accessible to him, right? So the Performance Institute, and as well your gym over there. How do you see Aljamain doing in his next fight against Petr Yan? Are you guys exclusively working with him, or is he flying back and forth?
So he's been in New York for a while. I got to work with him It's almost been maybe about a month and a half ago. When he just got cleared, he was in town. Him and I worked together. Then he went back home. So, he was out in Vegas for his last camp, mostly because of the PI, and he had a lot of injuries that he was fixing. So while being here, that's why him and I really struck up a good relationship, and I focused a lot on his camp. So I really don't know what he's going to do for this camp. I would assume probably a little bit of the same. He's in town. I'll see him tomorrow. So he's in town until Sunday. So we'll get a good week of sessions in, and then I can kind of nail down what he's expecting for camp. But for me, man, as a coach, like especially in a situation like Aljo, it's pretty one camp at a time bias, where it's like I know that I served a purpose for him because he was here. But if he's going to do most of his camp back home or in New York, then of course, like those guys back home should hold precedence, and those guys are the ones that are probably going to be doing most of the work. So really, it's really up to Aljo. I haven't really spoken to him much about it, but I plan on getting that nailed down this week and figure out what the hell he needs.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the comments from TJ Dillashaw. He was talking about Aljamain Sterling and Petr Yan. One of his criticisms of Aljamain Sterling was he has no confidence in his hands. Mainly, he sees. I understand where he's coming from. Even from the Petr Yan fight, a lot of his strikes were kicks. And traditionally, he is one of those grapplers. Like against Corey Sandhagen, he took him down and he choked him out pretty easily. What are your thoughts on that? Is there anything in those comments, or is it just TJ Dillashaw talking?
No, I think TJ is probably pretty. I would say that Aljamain doesn't have confidence in his hands. I just think that Aljamain has a different skill set than TJ. And I cornered against Aljamain years ago with Brian Caraway. I was on the other side of that, and that was one of the assessments that I had on Aljo back then. Was he's just kick heavy, because a lot of the reasons why he does it is he likes to maintain his distance. He doesn't want to be at punching range. He likes to be at kicking range, but he likes to set up his takedowns off of that. So I don't think that that's the reason why is because of confidence. I think it's because of ideology and what he likes to implement. So, and again, like he does it really well. So he's the champ for a reason. And, I think his style gives a lot of people fits, and it's very awkward, and there's not a lot of like, reads and tells and things like that he does. But yeah, could you get better in the hands department? I think so. Absolutely. You should be getting better in everything, but I think he does a lot of that stuff for purpose.
Yeah. One last guy we'll talk about before we go into this like quick rapid fire fight predictions. Brandon Moreno. We saw a picture of him. Was he sparring with Francis in the gym?
No. Brandon splits camps with us. He comes in and does a lot of our practices. And then, obviously when he's in regular camp, he's out in Mexico, or he's doing like more specialized camp training, but he's a great friend of the gym. I can say like he's an extreme couture guy, but he's one of, definitely one of our allies. He's a great kid, and couldn't be happier for him. So that day I was working with Francis, and then Brandon was in one of the practices, and we just were able to get that picture. And, it's nice having, we have 3 champions in our gym that, call our gym home or halfway home. It's like Aljamain, Brandon, and Francis now.
Yeah, but he's on his own world tour as well. I saw him. He was out with Canelo, learning how to do body shots.
Crazy segment too. He was telling him that when you're throwing the body shot, that when you hit the bag, like don't let your hand bounce, right? Just to punch through the bag.
Canelo was telling Brandon.
Yeah, he was telling Brandon that when you punch, you have to like punch through it and don't like have your hand bounce back.
Yeah, try to melt through the bag. We always talk about if you can draw an invisible line from the hip to the shoulder, you want to drive that punch up through the hip, through the liver. If you're trying to hit the liver, if you drew a line up through the opposite shoulder, you're trying to follow that invisible line up to that shoulder. So makes a lot of sense, man. You want to try to hit the guy behind you, and drive through.
Write that down. Write that down.
I'll take notes later.
I'll take notes. Okay, for this last segment, it's gonna be a very quick fight prediction. So the first one we're gonna ask is Volkanovski versus Ortega.
I'm going to go with Volkanovski on this one. I think Ortega looked amazing in the zombie fight. I thought he really looked good. I just think Ortega is just just a wrecking ball, man. I like watching him fight. I like watching his style, but I also like what he does in fight as far as his changes in the way he adapts in the corner. And I just think I think for me, like with Ortega, when he lost to Max, he wasn't able to find a way to kind of change gears or mix up his game, where I seen Volkanovski do that. I think he's able to adapt on the fly. So I'm going to go with Volkanovski on that one.
What's your takeaways? Or one thing that Izzy, that comes from the same camp, one of their focuses is feints. How much emphasis do you guys like focus on feints, or is that just something that's just part of your game?
Yes. I mean, feints are a big part of our game, but we do it a little different in the regards of we feint level change, right? So we want to feint a lot of level change because, you know, our pedigree is a lot of ground and pound.
It's a couture, yeah.
And what we try to implement. So our feints are to try to get you to drop your lead hand against a closed stance and set up our overhand or our fit in or both. You know, so there's a myriad of things that we're able to do off of that. But yes, feints are very, very important. Izzy does feints in a different way because he's more of a sniper. He likes to see which way you're slipping and how does he set up his strikes off your slips and sees if he can drift you into a trap. But the guy's amazing, man. I had a corner against Izzy with Brad, and you know it was a long night for us. I was super proud of Brad. He made it 5 rounds with that dude, but it was a fucking war.
Yeah. How was it game planning against Izzy? Is it do you see him like basically the same type of fighter but like refined skills, or have you seen like this huge improvement?
Well, I think where we fucked up in the Izzy fight was we didn't realize. I mean, we knew he was tall and long. We didn't realize how big his splits would be, his legs. You know, so when we shot in a lot of times off the double, he ran his split really wide. It was hard for us to collect our hands, which is a pretty common thing. You know, we just chain over to the single, but I think we should have attacked the single leg first and then got him off balance and maybe ran back to the double. There's a couple things I think we could have done better wrestling wise, and maybe we weren't overlooking Izzy's wrestling, but we certainly could have done some things better as a coaching staff, in my opinion. And then you know, Brad had some few injuries coming in, and we contemplated on pulling out, but it was Brad's first main event. So all in all, man, it is what it is, and I think we came away with that with a much better understanding of who we are as coaches and martial artists, and you know, it made us better at the end of the day.
100%. Next fight is Nick Diaz versus Robbie Lawler.
Ooh, Nick Diaz and Robbie Lawler, man. Wow. What a old school. One of the first ones I remember watching those two scrap. I'm kind of lean towards Robbie just because he's just been in the sport. He's been relevant. I know he hasn't fought in a whole lot lately, but I know he's been in the gym and he's been working with those guys over at Sanford quite a bit. So I think the question mark is how hard is Nick training? How hard has he been training? You know, how does he look and all those things. So I think I would lean towards Robbie just in the fact of you have a little bit of more of the unknown with Nick, but I'm pulling for Nick too, man. I like the guy a lot. He's one of the nicest dudes you're ever going to meet. He's a talent, and I'm just glad he's back in the cage because he's better fighting than sitting on the sidelines.
100%,
yeah. Nick Diaz, like everybody knows, like he always does triathlons. He swims to Alcatraz all the time. So he's in shape, but it's like
shark infested waters of, you know, great whites in that bay, and yeah, he's crazy, bro. So yeah, good on him.
I wouldn't doubt he's high the whole time.
You better be. I'm not trying to swim in that fucking water. Cold and sharks. Nah, I'm all set.
Yeah, and then Robbie Lawler, like when he came at the Ben Askren fight, this guy went crazy in the first minute. Yeah. It was the suplexing Ben Askren, yeah.
And then he got bulldog choked. But even then, like, it wasn't a finish, right? If you watch it again, it wasn't a finish.
Yeah. Well, it was a fun fight. That fight is gonna be very, very interesting. I don't think it's not necessarily gonna be like the highest level of mixed martial arts, but it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, it's a fight where I think the fans are gonna win more than anything. So you could flip a coin and you can point at any of those guys being the winner of that fight. But I'm just glad to see Nick back in the cage.
Yeah. It's fun.
Next fight is Jan Blachowicz versus Glover Teixeira.
Oh man, Glover's been on a tear. I'm super proud to see that dude where he's at. I mean, you know, he's been up and down for quite a while, but he's unbelievably talented, man. I remember Glover coming to the gym years ago with like Chuck Liddell and that crew. So it's nice to see him finally get his dues. But I think Jan Blachowicz is the real deal at champion. I think he ends up. Glover gets hit a lot. He gets hit a lot, man, and I don't like to see that. If Glover can implement some of that wrestling and take down Glover's ground game is unbelievable, bro. But and so is Jan's. But I think Jan gets the finish in that one.
Yeah, one thing Jan does like really good is his head movement. He's always moving his head off center.
And then power too.
The Polish power, as everybody in our comments tells us.
Yep, hits like a truck.
Yeah. Okay, we'll make these last few quick. Usman and Covington.
Usman all day.
Usman, the first fight was I've rewatched it since then. One thing that was my takeaway was Colby Covington seemed like he was always one strike too much every exchange. So he would throw like a 3-piece combo and then go for the fourth, and that fourth would give Usman the opportunity for like a cross, or he would move his head off center and use his reach. Do you think that's going to play into the rematch? Like Colby, I hope he's learned from his mistakes, but.
Well, I think Usman has done a great job in between these fights of controlling and understanding his emotions. You know, he's fought one of his best friends in Gilbert Burns. You know, he's just, to me, when you see him evolving fight after fight after fight, Henry Hooft has done a marvelous job with him, and then now Trevor Whitman is just, I think, adding more tools to the tool shed. So, in my opinion, I think Usman right now is the pound per pound GOAT in the division, and he owns a win over Kobe, and an emphatic win. You know, he broke the guy's jaw and sent him away. So I think just the confidence level is gonna maybe hang on Kobe a little bit, right? Like just knowing that he got finished the way he did. So, and then here's Usman, who's staying active, who's been busy, who's been training. I think Usman gets him out of there again.
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to start floating around was the idea of Usman versus Izzy. One thing that they talk about, like, oh, I don't want to fight my African brother and stuff like that. How about they fight each other in Nigeria?
This guy.
How about that?
Well, I mean, you know what, dude? You know, you say that, but you start pushing big money at these guys and real dollar signs. A lot of people will fight. You know, I'll fight my dad if the money is right. So it sounds right. It sounds like the novel thing to say is like, I won't fight my brother, but if real money was involved in a big fight, go get paid. We had at a time Mike Pyle, Jay Heron, Martin Campman, John Alessio. This murders row at 170 in our gym. And we were predicated to seeing some of the best rounds in our gym, pay-per-view rounds, and it would always come up like, man, well, what happens if you guys ever had a fight? Every one of them said, hell yeah, we'll fight. We fight every day in the gym. We might as well get paid for it. So you could change your family's lives forever by that one fight alone. So it doesn't mean that's bad blood. It means it's just a competition for 25 minutes.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like everybody, these are prize fighters, but at the same time, they have this allegiance to a gym and other things as well. But at the end of the day, you're a prize fighter, right? You fight for a prize.
Yeah. Okay, well, two more really quick. Rose versus Wei Li Zhang.
I got to go with my girl Rose. I think Trevor's done a marvelous job with her. Moreover, I think the confidence that she exudes. So I got to go with Rose in that one for sure.
How do you train that kick? Do you just get really, really flexible? Because the way that she threw that high kick was really like almost in the clinch.
Yeah, it's a lot of the setup too, because I remember her going, I think, to the inside, leading off a few times, maybe even to the body. But what you want to try to make sure it looks the same coming out, so you can't see. It's hard to read. You don't know if it's going to be a body kick, a low kick, or a head kick. And then the way she snaps it. So a lot of times you'll see the way the kick comes back down. You realize how hard she kicks is the way you get the momentum to come back. So yeah, man. I mean, she's got Pat Barry, that's her guy, and Pat Barry's a unbelievable kickboxer himself. So I'm sure they've been working on stuff like that for a long, long time. But she set it up really, man. It was all in the setup.
Yeah, and you could even see like Whaley was like I think she was anticipating a low kick, right? And she was like you like scooting back, but it came up top instead.
Yeah, set it up well.
Yeah. Well, last one, probably the most exciting one. I saw Chandler actually recently. Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje.
Man, I'm a big Trevor Whitman bias on this one. I'm going Gaethje. I'm going Gaethje. I think the wrestling might cancel each other out in this one, and then it turns into just a bloodbath as far as the striking goes. And I think, I love Chandler, man, and I've known Chandler a long, long time. I think it's more of a coin flip fight than anything, but I think when it comes down to like the grittiness of what Gaethje has to offer, God, man, the guy's hard to bet against and hard to root against. He's certainly a fan favorite, so I'll lean towards Gaethje in that one as well.
Who has more power, you think, between the two, between Chandler and Gaethje?
I think Mike might have a little bit more power. To be honest with you, I think I've seen Mike put some people away. That step over left hook against Dan Hooker, his right overhand where he slept one of the Pitbull brothers with. I mean, dude, the guy hits like a truck. I think Gaethje's a little bit more efficient in his striking. I think Gaethje hits hard, but I think he can hit hard longer. He lasts a lot longer with that power and stays relevant. So you can bet that calf kick's going to come into play a lot for Gaethje, because that's been Chandler's kind of Achilles heel, if you will, no pun intended, but that he's a front foot heavy guy. And I think that's something that he got exploited in the Brett Primus fight. Oliveira attacked that lead calf, and you better bet that Justin Gaethje is going to go down to that calf and take that front foot away and try to take away some of that power.
I remember Michael Chandler talking about that calf kick, and he said the way that he deals with it is that he just pulls out his foot. But then I saw like there's other fights that he's in. He tries to pull it out, but a lot of times it's coming so fast, it still lands on the calf. Yeah. Well, one thing was, do you think the last thing about that fight is, do you think Khabib put out the rubric to beat Justin Gaethje? Because we know that Justin Gaethje has this collegiate history of wrestling, but once he got down on the mat, it seemed like he didn't know what to do or how to defend certain submission holds.
No, I don't think you can put a lot of stock in what Khabib does to people. I think what Khabib does to people is otherworldly, and it's hard to assume that if Khabib can do that, then this person can do that, because it's like saying like, oh, this Superman did it, so maybe this guy could do it too, and it's just not the case. Like what Khabib does is just light years beyond. Chandler can wrestle, his grappling's insane as well, but I don't think he's going to have the same amount of success as what Khabib did against Justin.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Michael Chandler handles everything. Yeah. But thank you very much, Eric. We really appreciate your time. I know you don't have to do these interviews, but it's always fun for us to get another insight into these fights, especially something as big as Francis versus Cyril.
And we learned today too on how to throw a punch.
Yeah, the laser to try to punch the guy behind him.
Exactly. My pleasure, guys. Anytime, man. And thank you guys for reaching out.
Thank you very much.
If you want to drop your handles, you want to let anybody know where to find you, or if you want to promote anything.
Yeah, you can just find me on Instagram, Eric_XCMMA. I try to check my inbox, but I'm not the best at it. So yeah, if you ever want to get at me, find me on there.
Perfect. Thank you very much again.
Eric.
All right, guys. Have a good day. You guys. Enjoy your Sunday.
Take care.
All right, you too. Bye.
All right.